Spaces dropped on another edition of Soccer Down Here. It's March 9th. It's a Monday. It's an overreaction Monday. It's a little early overreaction Monday today, but you'll be able to catch this if you missed the first hour, if you miss any of the show, if your schedule is completely thrown off by us going an hour early, the podcast will be available. You can catch up then. It'll be okay. We'll be here for you whenever you need us. We are here. You can just click the play link, and you're good to go. But thanks for catching us whenever you do. And if you have any Overreaction Monday takes, throw them our way on Twitter, @SoccerDownHere. You can use the hashtag Overreaction Monday. You can make up your own hashtag, however you feel. It's a Monday. You can figure it out. We'll all roll along with it. I don't know if John is fully awake. I don't know if he has dug into the Mountain Dew just yet this morning.
Well, considering that I tried to stay up for MLS After Dark last night and made it as long as I possibly could, still passed out, still missed 2 goals. But, it was a fun one for the late crowd last night.
I'm glad I didn't try, because if I had, I would have stayed up for all of it, and then I'd be completely and utterly useless this morning. I'm just mildly useless this morning.
I'm just flat out useless, period, so there you go.
I wasn't going to go there. Jeez. All right. So we got a lot to talk about. We've got an Atlanta win over Cincinnati to talk about from the weekend. We've got that wild match last night, 3-3 LAFC and Philadelphia Union from Bank of California Stadium. We've got the U.S. women winning their second match in the She Believes Cup, a tough one, 1-0 over Spain. Julie Ertz with a late header to give the U.S. the win in that one. We've got Atlanta United 2, a tough loss yesterday to the Charleston Battery. Good performance overall. Dodgy penalty. I still feel like it was a little We'll get into all that. Whatever you guys want to get into, we are here for you. So start tweeting away. And if you missed the highlights from Atlanta and Cincinnati from our call on 92.9 The Game, here's a little of how it sounded when Ezequiel Barco opened the scoring.
Left to right goal kick fell right to Yuya Kubo, but a brilliant defensive play by Brooks Lennon to dispossess Lacadia and send it up to Pitti now, right attacking third. Pitti to the corner of the 18, into the box, edge of the 6. Pitti's cross, poked in for a goal! It's Barco again!
Atlanta made it 2-0 with a goal from Emerson Hyndman. Sounds a lot like Nashville. Goal Barco, goal Hyndman. Okay, here we go.
Oh, here's a chance. Barco into the attacking third. Right down the middle. Barco dribbling off to the left. Ahead to Mulroney, corner of the 18. Back to Pitti Martinez, top of the box. Over to Barco on the left side of the box. Barco into the box now. Emerson Hyndman takes a touch. Turn shot. Score! And Atlanta United does get the much-needed second goal. And just as it was in Nashville, it comes again from Emerson Hyndman. 2-0.
And it was a much-needed second goal because Cincinnati pulled one back through Yuya Kubo.
Kubo in the near corner with Remedi closing him down. Kubo waiting, playing it to the corner of the 18. Cruz centering where it's back-heeled by Lacadia to Regatin. Back up top now, turning on the ball is Kubo. Kubo will shoot from distance, scores. Yuya Kubo from 20 yards out had Brad Guzan completely fooled, and Cincinnati is back into it as they've cut the deficit to 2-1.
The 2-1 scoreline looked interesting towards the end. Cincinnati really didn't put a whole lot more together after that, and here's how it sounded at the end.
Thrown into the far corner, almost played out by Cincinnati. It did roll out. It did roll out. It's a throw to Atlanta United. Cincinnati has been so sloppy in key moments tonight, and they may have just dribbled themselves out of the match. Full time. Atlanta United wins their home.
Atlanta wins the home opener. Atlanta moves to 6 points on the season. There are 4 teams in Major League Soccer who are on 6 points. In the Western Conference, you've got Sporting Kansas City. You've got Minnesota United. You've got the Colorado Rapids. And in the Eastern Conference, you've got one, Atlanta United. I don't know if anyone expected that with the injuries, with a lineup in this one against Cincinnati that did not feature Miles Robinson, Franco Escobar, or Joseph Martinez. Lawrence Weick gets his first MLS start. He has to leave early on because of a head injury, potential concussion situation. He is replaced by a player making his MLS debut, not just his first start, but MLS debut in George Campbell. And you get through it. And Atlanta keeps getting through it right now. And they're going to have to get through something else entirely on Wednesday at the Estadio Azteca against Club America, who is also dealing with a number of injury issues. Both teams come in shorthanded and not at full strength. But, John, this one was a little bit of a survival of the fittest kind of situation. I thought Atlanta showed some good soccer throughout the night. They were not as sharp as we would expect them to be and hope they would be at later in the year when people are healthy. But Atlanta United did enough to get this win.
Yeah, and folks were reaching out to me, and they were looking at the offense and saying that things were disjointed in the final third. And I was trying to remind folks, look, yes, you have a week of practice without Joseph Martinez, but you're still trying to find these relationships. You're still trying to figure out, okay, without Joseph up top, Adam John up top, how do these societies work? How do these relationships work? And it's the first time in game state that you've had the chance to do it. So things are going to be a bit of a workshop. And I think that what you saw with Atlanta United going up against FC Cincinnati was that workshopping. And you got to see Barco and PT and Heinemann and all of the working that was going on, trying to figure out, okay, here, and here, as you're trying to get things done offensively. But I think that you have to give a tremendous amount of credit to Atlanta United for workshopping during the week, for getting it done against FC Cincinnati. Yes, it was a bit of a grinder. Yes, I'm sure for fans it was frustrating at times. But once again, just remember all of the things that are in play here to get you full points. And so I think that you have to give a tremendous amount of credit to Frank DeBoer, to the staff, to the players, to George Campbell. And I think that getting a couple of minutes for George in the tail end of the first half, I think helped get him integrated into the state of play and helped him in that final 45 minutes. So I think that there were a lot of things to take from this as the team tries to work forward without Joseph.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a little blown away that people were frustrated. I mean, look, you're missing a player that is the best forward in the league. Flat out. Joseph Martinez is the best forward in the league, national team player for Venezuela. You're missing Miles Robinson, national team player for the United States. You're missing top talent, and you're having to figure out how to replace it on the fly because, sure, you have a week of training. That would really be 3 training sessions to get deep into it. One more walkthrough on Friday. You don't have a ton of time. Maybe you get another half session in there. Maybe you get a 4th session. It's early in the year. You're not having to rest super large amounts here. But it's tough. It's very tough to do. And you see a player in Adam John who's a very different type of forward than Joseph Martinez. And yes, it looked disjointed. It was disjointed. Did it get good at times? Yep. Did it look like at times players hadn't played together? Yep, because they hadn't. The back line is what impressed me the most because you're missing not just Miles Robinson, you're missing Franco Escobar. And when you go into the season with a 3 center back setup and you're missing 2 of those, and you're still able to do what you've done over the last couple of weeks, you take it and you run with it. And that's sports. I mean, that's just where you're at. It's a campaign. And was it the best? No, but let's compare a couple things here. Take what Atlanta United looked like on Saturday night, where they created chances. The expected goals was like 2. They got 2. They did pretty well. And did they sit back and try to defend and protect a back line that was featuring 2 not regular starters? No, they didn't. They played. Compare that to Portland. Portland was at home against Nashville. Portland got a goal, a beautiful goal from Diego Valeri, and in Portland took every bus in the Pacific Northwest and lit it on fire and put it in front of the goal. At home. At home. Yeah. I mean, come on. Like, that's the thing here. If Atlanta United did that, they would be completely justified with the injuries they're facing. Portland had to do it because they can't do anything in the attack and they can't defend in transition. So they did that at home, and Portland is a team that can be a top team in this league. Atlanta still tried to find a way to play without Joseph Martinez. And this is not something they've ever really had to face for this extended period of time. I do think, as we talked about last week, Atlanta United is hamstrung just a bit by the schedule at the moment because, sure, you have 3 to 4 training sessions to work on a replacement for Joseph Martinez. After that, you're not really going to have much because it is game Saturday, recovery Sunday, training today, fly to Mexico City later today, walkthrough / light training session at the stadium tomorrow, play Wednesday, travel Thursday, walk through Friday, play Sporting Kansas City Saturday, recover Sunday, training session Monday, light training session ahead of the game Tuesday, play Club America in Kennesaw Wednesday, recovery Thursday, train Friday, travel to Chicago, play in Chicago. Like, you just don't have a lot of time for true, full training sessions over the next couple of weeks. So you have to go with the simplest thing. And the simplest thing is replacing Adam John with another forward or replacing Joseph Martinez with Adam John, another forward, not trying to move things around too much, and also try to incorporate a player like Mateus Rossetto, who came in the second half. I think you saw some great flashes from him. You got some hints at the talent that he possesses. And now you have to try to figure out, all right, we're missing our top goal scorer. We have an attacking-minded midfielder who can come into the mix. What do we do with this? How can we figure this out on the fly? And that's where you're going to be for the next 5 games, to be completely realistic. This happens to teams. This happens to teams all over the world. If you can keep getting results while you're figuring it out, that's a credit to a coaching staff. That's a credit to a squad. That's a credit to a group of players that I thought on Saturday night showed a scrappiness, a grittiness that you're going to have to see right now, because it's not going to look completely in sync. It's not going to be flowing at times. It's going to be choppy, and you're going to see passes go wayward. You're going to see missed ideas. You're going to see things not come off. That's just where you're at the moment. But you have to fight through it, and I thought Atlanta United did that pretty well against a Cincinnati team that, hey, you want to compare Atlanta's back line of Fernando Meza, who I thought put on a clinic against Jurgen Locadia, but Meza is a player coming from Mexico, a player that was respected in Mexico, but a player that wasn't, on the market for a huge price. Anton Walks, who came over from Portsmouth, a player who Portsmouth fans said wasn't good enough for them, and a player in George Campbell who was an academy player last year at this time. That was your back three against designated player Jurgen Locadia on loan from Brighton in the Premier League, designated player Yuya Kubo, Japanese international, has scored goals in multiple leagues in Europe. Adrien Regatin, another player with experience, extensive experience in the top flight in France. It was Atlanta's 3 against that 3, and on paper, you look at CVs, you look at resumes, you take names off, you're going to think the attacking 3 would have their way with the defensive 3. Well, they didn't. And you have to give credit to the players, the coaching staff, for finding a way to make all of this happen. It was a team performance. I thought it was a strong performance. It was not the prettiest of performances, but that expectation has to be put to the side a little bit right now. It is getting points and surviving and moving on and figuring things out as you go.
Can we go back a little bit and talk about Lawrence Weick? I know that
Sure.
He kind of gets lost in the shuffle a little bit because of the head injury, but once again, you have in Lawrence Weick someone not intimidated by his surroundings, someone who's developed and gets the start. And some of the diagonals that Lawrence Weick hit to get things moving from his right-hand side over to the offensive left-hand side were tremendous balls. Absolute confidence that we saw from Lawrence Weick. And obviously, you hope that the head injury that he got isn't going to slow him down in the longer term. But in his 35 to 40 minutes, you saw some flashes from Lawrence Weick as well from that position. So once again, you mentioned CVs, someone who's developed through the system, and you're seeing what we're getting from Lawrence Weick for the second game in a row.
Lawrence Weick got the opportunity to play ahead of George Campbell because of that passing, that long range of passing, and in a match against Cincinnati where you can open the game up with those big diagonals. That's why he got the start. I think Campbell might be a little bit better defensively as a center back right now. Weick's a little raw defensively in that kind of role. He's a guy who's played a little bit of everything defensively with Atlanta United too. Right back, center back, and a back four. He's played some as a center back and a three. He's played some holding midfield. Defensively, it's not his strongest of suits right now, but he's a hard worker, and he didn't get beat in any way that hurt the squad, but his passing is what allowed this team to do some things on Saturday early on that helped a great deal. Campbell, and this was a credit to him, growing in confidence as the day went on, made some mistakes early on with his passes. At first, it was very safe, and then just a little hesitant. But once he got going in the match, he made some line-splitting passes. He progressed the ball forward pretty well. He even carried it forward at times. Those are the moments you're looking for in some of these kinds of games because these players are getting experience early on that was unexpected. If everybody's healthy, George Campbell probably plays for Atlanta United 2 yesterday. Lawrence Weick would definitely be playing for Atlanta United 2 yesterday if everybody's healthy. And you're moving forward, and that's where you're at. But now, because of injuries, because of an opportunity that's been presented, you've seen George Campbell in an MLS match, and you've seen him be able to handle it. You've seen Lawrence Weick in 2 different MLS matches and seen that he can handle it and he can bring things to the table. You're getting to observe things and learn things that you weren't planning on. And you have to take that right now and run with it because at some point this season, when everybody is healthy, somebody's going to need a break. It's a crowded schedule and you want to compete on all fronts. Maybe it's an Open Cup match early on. You don't have to worry about George Campbell getting a start there. You don't have to worry about George Campbell getting a start in MLS now. You've seen it. Lawrence Weick, he can contribute. You've got players that are getting this experience that they weren't going to get without these opportunities that have happened, and that's going to be a benefit in the long run to the squad.
We've got folks on the Twitters this morning. You want to go there?
Let's see what people are saying on the Twitters at 8:21.
John Roper says it looked like there were a lot of empty seats on Saturday. The team looked good. Definitely missed some key folks on the back line, and that is his hashtag on par reaction for Monday.
You missed some key folks on the back line, but, seriously, let's go back and look at the quality of the chances Cincinnati was getting. It wasn't that much. They had the one goal, and it's a long-range effort from Kubo, and he hits it just square on the button and gets some crazy knuckleball action going on.
It was a great two-seamer that Kubo hit.
Kind of. It's really difficult for the goalkeeper to deal with, and Brad's drifting one way because it looks like initially that's where the shot's headed, and it spins back the other way, and he's caught. But, empty seats, I think what I noticed is people were a little slow to get in. About midway through the first half, it looked pretty good. You're also dealing with a virus scare right now. It's reality, and Atlanta has not been hit with it like Cincinnati or like Seattle has, like Portland has. Seattle had a lot of empty seats, drew one of their smallest crowds. Portland had empty seats, and Portland never has empty seats. It's going to happen right now. It's just part of the reality. But when we can look at a crowd of 69,000, and I don't know what the turnstile count was. That's what was sold. That's what was distributed. That's a lot. I don't think the turnstile count is that much different, and that's a good thing. I mean, that's just where you're at right now. Everybody in the world is dealing with this in different ways, and it will affect crowds. I mean, there will be people who don't want to come, don't want to go to large public gatherings right now. You're seeing in Europe, large public gatherings are being postponed, canceled, games being played behind closed doors because of all this. Hopefully, it doesn't progress to that point in the U.S., but yeah, it's going to affect attendance in the short term.
KFC this morning. The more I see it, the more obvious it is that the way PT played the ball across to Barco on the first goal, there was very little chance it wasn't going over the line.
I mean, the thing about Pitti on that one is the pass is fine, and the pass is created by the way he took Kendall Waston on the dribble. Uh, Drove past him to the right when I think Waston expected him to go to the left, and the little shoulder drop and step back to the right. Waston's gone. He's out of the play. And Pitti has a ball up against the end line with Adam John crashing at the near post early, and Barco coming in behind him and defenders coming in behind him. The way Pitti plays that ball in with the positioning that he got to, it's not that it's completely for sure going over, but it's really hard for a defender to deal with because you're running the risk of putting it in your own net. It's really hard for the goalkeeper, Spencer Ritchie, to deal with because he's got bodies just crashing in on top of him and he's trying to keep focus. And you've got two Atlanta players there. So it's a high percentage ball. But he gets that ball because of the move eliminating Waston by going to his right, not his left, and looking for his own shot. He gets to that spot with the little shoulder drop. Waston's gone, taking it to the end line and pulling it back. It's good work all the way around. It was good build-up play, but Pitti with that decision put himself in a great opportunity where it's a high percentage opportunity and it's very difficult for a goalkeeper to deal with.
The Soccer for Good OG Joe Robbins in. Atlanta United is like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're going to get, and I like that. With so much versatility and next man up attitude, it will be tough to scout us. Defense locked down, control and create. Get a little more in sync. Frank DeBoer for Coach of the Year.
It's going to be interesting to see how Club America, how Sporting Kansas City approaches Atlanta because you get so used to dealing with Atlanta in Joseph Martinez being up top, Atlanta being able to get out on the run and hurt you. Talents like Barco and Pitti are difficult to plan for, period, because they're unpredictable. Now it's even more unpredictable, and I don't know what it's going to look like. I don't know if Frank DeBoer truly knows what the attack's going to look like because these guys are going to be figuring this out. You're going to get a Mateus Rossetto player into this team that nobody in the league really knows either, and what he can bring to the table. I think he's going to have some opportunities because Pitti and Barco are going to draw attention now, and it's going to open up things for Rossetto. It's going to open up things for Heinemann, and we've seen Heinemann take advantage of it. What I hope it's going to happen is it's going to open up things out wide for Jake Mulroney, for George Bello, for Brooks Lennon to take more advantage of. That's one area of the team that I hope can have more of an impact in the attacking end very soon. But it's impressive that you're getting these kinds of performances early on. I mean, we talked about all the changes in the lineup. We didn't even really get to Mulroney. Mulroney wasn't intended to be a left wing back in this group at this point. He's not really an outside back, period. He's played it a little bit, but defensively there were concerns. I had big concerns in the first 45 against Motagua. But after that, it feels like every 45 that he plays there, he's getting better and better, and he's putting in complete performances. So you're getting these performances from unexpected places. You would expect that with those minutes, these players are going to improve. You're going to start to get more cohesion, and it's going to be more difficult. Now, the level of competition is about to dramatically go up because Club America, even with their injuries, is a very difficult team on Wednesday, especially in a very difficult place to play at the Estadio Azteca. You want to manage this one as best that you can. And then you're going to play Sporting Kansas City, who is also undefeated this season and was just incredible against Houston at home and against a team in the Dynamo that is missing some attacking talent and a team that has historically struggled on the road. But Kansas City played through Houston's pressure pretty easily, and you're going to be dealing with a striker in Alan Pulido, who is scoring goals and creating them for others. Attacking midfielder in Gadi Kinda, who has been really impressive early on. The speed of a Kyrie Shelton. It's a good team. It's a really good team, and it's going to be difficult on short rest to dial that up. Then you get the second leg in Club America, and then you're going to see a Chicago team that has been difficult on the road. Not great. They're starting to get their pieces in. Gaston Jimenez made his debut, and he looked really good in doing it as well in New England. Ignacio Aliceda is in the team now. You're getting a Chicago team that will be closer to full strength, but you're going to get them in their home opener too. And it's a tough schedule coming up. It's a very tough schedule coming up. But you also hope that Atlanta, with these minutes that they're getting, with these opportunities to grow, are going to be stronger when you get to that point as well.
Baskers is in this morning at Badaska on Twitter for a hashtag Overreaction Monday. Quote, when teams do smell blood and they think they can get after us, then we've got to put them to the sword and we've got to punish them and we've got to dictate the game and we have to be better, end quote. This medieval quote from Frank de Boer, I love it, double clapping emoji.
Yeah, I mean, let's get into it from I believe I know the context of this one. When teams like Cincinnati late start to commit numbers forward and take more chances, that's when you need to hit something the other way and break them. Cincinnati was starting to a little bit early in the second half. Then you get the Heinemann goal, which was critical. It felt like the game was teeter-tottering just a little bit, and Cincinnati was starting to grow in confidence. You punish them with the Heinemann goal. You got the second goal you needed, and this team, under Frank de Boer at home, once they get a second goal, they don't lose. They're 17-0-1 with at least 2 goals at home under Frank de Boer. So defensively, you feel secure with 2. You don't want to concede the goal you did to Yuya Kubo. It's a great goal, and you tip your cap and you move on. And after that, you handled it pretty well. Now, I think what Frank would like to see this team get to the next level of this is handling it well, but then getting that third goal and putting all doubt to the side. And that's going to be the next step. That's the ruthlessness that you're trying to get to. That's what top teams will do. When an opponent starts to grow into it, they don't just deal with it. They smack them back down and put the game away. And that's where Atlanta needs to get to. Now, it's going to be hard without Joseph Martinez to have the attacking firepower to do it. And Atlanta had times on the break where they should have been better. And hopefully they will learn from that and play just a little quicker, trust each other just a little bit more. I think with Adam John, you saw a player who has limited minutes with Ezequiel Barco and Pity Martinez. I think he's making runs they didn't expect. They didn't expect him to be in certain spots. They expected him to be in other spots. It was disjointed, as it should be. But over time, that's going to improve. And then you add a Mateus Rossetto into it, who had training sessions with this team, played 45 minutes with with a group, not so much with that group in Birmingham, had another 45 to 60 minutes in a scrimmage, more with the twos group. But he's figuring it out too. And he's also figuring out the language side of it as well. So you've got talented players figuring it out on the fly. It's going to get better. And I think what Frank is hitting at in that quote is those moments where you saw Atlanta start to break, when Cincinnati threw numbers forward, took more chances. When they started to put Atlanta under some pressure, hit them on the break, and put the game away. Atlanta wasn't able to do that Saturday night. That's something they need to add to the arsenal.
Jason Heinley in this morning. And he says Heinemann and Barco are going to end up with 34 goals each at this rate. Hashtag Overreaction Monday.
That would be an Overreaction Monday, yes. Heinemann is a player that a lot of people questioned coming in. I think you're seeing some of the talents that he has. I think you're seeing some of the I think technical abilities he has in the final third. He's not Darlington Nagbe. I don't think anyone ever said that he was. Was he acquired when things looked like Darlington Nagbe would be leaving? Yes. Do you want to call him the hashtag Nagbe replacement? Sure, whatever. Put the hashtag on it. He's not the same player. Honestly, he's a better player in the final third. He's, I think, a more ruthless finisher in the final third. Nagbe doesn't have that mindset. Nagbe could be better in deeper positions. We haven't seen Heineman in those as much. But Heineman is also a young player who is now getting, I think, top experience with a top team. And we're going to see him grow. Looking pretty good so far. So I think the concerns about the midfield can fade away a little bit. And Barco, I mean, I'm so happy to see him play in this way because when he came, he was looked at as more of a creator. He was looked at as a player who, on the dribble, was dangerous, could hurt teams, could move pieces around, create openings. Now he's starting to become a player that is dangerous in the final third. Dangerous not just in creating for others, but scoring goals himself and different kinds of goals. You know, let's take his whole Atlanta United run and look at it. He's got goals from distance. He's got the header last year against Philadelphia is not a Barco kind of goal. That got you a point. This one was not a Barco kind of goal, crashing the near post and putting it away. But Barco's starting to have that killer instinct in the final third that didn't know if he had. He'd never really been asked to display it. And now you're starting to get that too. So both of those players, I think, are making statements early on that this is going to be a big year for each of them. Now, it's 2 games in league play. You've got 2 games in CONCACAF. It's got to continue to improve. And every player goes through it. You're going to have some moments where the production's not there. These two have to find ways to contribute at all times. I think Barco showed you a lot of that on Saturday where even late in the game, tired legs, he is tracking back, defending, good awareness. I think multiple times when you needed that third midfielder to drop and help, Barco was doing it. Really impressed with that. Really, really impressed with those sides of Barco's game. You know what you're going to get on the dribble. You know what you're going to get with the passing. You know it's hard to take the ball off of him. You know he's going to draw a ton of fouls. You know those things, and he consistently produces those things. But when he's giving you scrappiness in the final third, a killer instinct in the final third, putting the ball in the back of the net however it takes, and also giving you a defensive effort, you've got to just stand up and applaud. And Barco is continuing to show why there are so many teams around the world that are interested in him. You know, he's still developing as a player, but he's a great one right now.
Turner Kirby looking at action outside of Atlanta and Cincinnati. I'm guessing Turner stayed up late. Hashtag 5 Stripes After Dark has become hashtag MLS After Dark, or I guess hashtag Pac-12 After Dark applies to local soccer teams as well.
Yeah, it was nuts. Philadelphia is not getting in the Pac-12 After Dark conversation, so MLS After Dark continues. What a goal from Glesnes, the bomb free kick from about 35 yards out that I retweeted the Fox Deportes call. You can hear the commentator as he's backing up, because on the English language call, you know, Stuart Holden chimes in, you know, it looks like he's going to shoot from here.
Yeah.
And you can hear it on the Fox Deportes call. He's like, no, no, no. And then he hits it, and he's like, oh! He just goes,
Uh-huh.
It's great.
Crazy.
It's a bomb from distance. Vela with a great free kick. It was a great match. It was a fun match. Bob Bradley's got to have some questions about his defense, as we've been saying since the Walker-Zimmerman trade. Giving up 3 goals at home is never a good look. If you're LAFC, they did come back 3 times to get a point. You have to give them a ton of credit in that sense as well. But that's a point against a good team in Philadelphia, a team that I think we're all still kind of figuring out what they're going to be in 2020. But it's conceding 3 goals at home. And it has to open up some questions about LAFC and what 2020 looks like for them until they upgrade their backline. I mean, it's just not good enough at the moment.
I mean, okay, so the box score, Santos hits the rocket from 25, and they go up 1-0.
Oh, that's more than 25. To give no, Santos was probably about 25. You're right, sorry.
So Santos goes from 25, Vela hits the free kick, and then it's like Glesnes hits that slider from 40, and you look at Vermeer, and for me, I think that's at least early in the season. I think that should be part of the book on Vermeer. Hit him up from distance and see what happens.
Both of those are great goals. I'm not putting much of that on Vermeer.
Then after Glesnes scores, Rossi hits the equalizer. Was it a minute 4 later, I think was what the clock said. I know Opta initially had it like at a minute 9, but I think that it goes down to a minute 4. Then Aronson hits it from, gets it in the 69th minute, and then Eddie Segura 2 minutes later. And so you see LAFC coming back into the fray. It's like instantaneously they're coming back for equalizers. And yeah, I think that says a lot about LAFC, but yeah, to your point, right now you're seeing Dejan Jakovic doing well, but is that sustainable over an entire season from him? And for me, that's part of that larger question about the line at the back for LAFC, that it's something that has to be addressed, I would think, from Bob Bradley's perspective as we get into the season. That, to me, is the biggest red flag about what I'm seeing right now with LAFC.
It's not Bob Bradley's perspective. It's the front office perspective. It's John Thorrington's perspective because, Bob Bradley can only work with the guys that he has. And the decision, and I don't know if Bob Bradley actively wanted to trade Walker Zimmerman, but the decision was made to trade Zimmerman at the time they did, and you're going into these games shorthanded because they're shorthanded. Dejan Jakovic was not brought here to be a starter, and he's doing the best he can right now, but he lacks for pace. He struggles in some of these moments, and you're getting the best you can, but is this going to be enough to get through a quarterfinal with Cruz Azul in CONCACAF and more early season matches? You haven't really heard of any links of LAFC to defenders right now, and I think they need one as soon as they can get it. They need to get that player in quickly and start to get them ready because this is not sustainable giving up 3 goals at home. It's not. And your 2 games at home, you've got 4 goals, you've got a win and a draw. You've played an expansion team in Miami that was a 1-0 win, and you were coming off a short rest after the match with Leon, so you take that and you run with it. But this one against Philadelphia, they can't be happy with the overall result. They can be happy with the fight, they can be happy with coming back 3 times, but you shouldn't have to come back 3 times. Not at home. Even against a quality team in Philadelphia, they shouldn't be putting themselves in that situation. I'll be very curious to see how they come out in CONCACAF this week against Cruz Azul because there has to be some questions internally about their ability to defend.
Nathan Pugh along the same lines. He says, watch the recording of the LAFC Union match this morning when a game of footy. Hashtag Golazos. Hashtag Overreaction Monday. I think really that's an on-par reaction Monday.
Yeah, it was a wild one. It was an absolute wild one last night. And a fun one for neutrals. I think a very stressful one for LAFC fans. A happy, wild night for Philadelphia fans because you're going to be happy with that point on the road in a tough place like Bank of California Stadium. It's LAFC fans that are going to be the ones that have some misgivings about the way last night went.
Emery Russell this morning. Proud of the guys after a week filled with uncertainty. Hats off to George Campbell for coming in unexpectedly and covering for Wyke. Time to regroup and focus on the challenge ahead at Azteca. That's his hashtag on par reaction on an overreaction Monday.
I mean, right now, yeah, it is just regroup, recover, get what you can out of every 90 minutes on the field, and just keep moving forward. You have talent. Getting Josetu the minutes that you did was really key because he's going to be needed over these next few matches. You have transcendent talent in Ezequiel Barco and Pity Martinez. You need them to step up and continue in both of their cases to play at the level that they are playing. Pity with 2 assists on Saturday night. I thought he was very good, and it was very good to see him get some rest too, because he's going to be needed to be very fresh at the Estadio Azteca, because even for a player of Pity's stature, a player of Barco's stature, a player of Josetu's stature, and their experience in South American competition, the Azteca is one of the toughest places to play in the world. And it's not what LAFC is going to face there playing Cruz Azul when it's not Cruz Azul's historic building. You're going in to face Las Aguilas. You're going in to face Club America. It's their house. And they typically do not drop points in that building. So Atlanta United is going to go in and have to rely on their talent. They're going to have to rely on their togetherness and fight, because that's what this one's going to be. I mean, this has been a place that very few American-based teams have been able to take anything out of. National teams, you've got 2 points in World Cup qualifying. You got a win in a random friendly with a late goal from Michael Orozco Fiscal. You're just going in there to get what you can out of it. If Atlanta can find a goal, amazing. If Atlanta can just manage the result, if they can take a draw out of that, amazing. You're going to feel really good about coming back to Kennesaw. And, these are the things that happen in this game. I think a lot of people immediately jump to a conclusion that without Joseph Martinez, this team just can't function. It's not the case. Can they function the same way? No, probably not. Are they going to have the ability to find another way? You hope that they can quickly. But the talent in this team is going to be something you're leaning on right now. And when you look at Frank de Boer and the way he wants this team to play in general, he wants organization defensively. He wants this team to not get out of shape, not give up easy opportunities to the opposition. He wants to make them work for it. That's going to come in really handy right now while you're figuring out all these issues with the injuries. But he also wants to create 1v1 opportunities for his talented players. That fits for what an Ezequiel Barco can do to hurt an opposition. That fits for what Pity Martinez can do. That fits for what Mateus Josetu can do. You need to get Brooks Lynn and Jake Mulroney wide players winning their 1v1 battles outside. Because if you can stay organized, and if you can win your 1v1s, win your duels, you're going to be able to play with anybody, even without a talent like Joseph Martinez. But that organization, we've seen it so far with a rotating cast defensively. All preseason, it's been good. It's been really good. And now you've got to, even more so than before, win your 1v1 battles. Because you don't have number 7 up top who can pull, a rabbit out of his hat. You've got to win your 1v1 battles. Pity, I think when you look back at Saturday, and especially that first goal, it's essentially what it is. He has a 1v1 battle with Kendall Waston, smokes him, then puts in a ball that is kind of destined to be put into the back of the net one way or another. You have to do those. Emerson Hyndman with the quick turn, quick shot, wins that 1v1. You've got to win your 1v1s, and you have players who are built to win those. So that's what you're relying on right now. While you figure this out, that's what you're relying on at the moment, is players winning their 1v1 battles. So far, so good for Atlanta.
And with Fernando Meza, and I know that we'll probably continue to address this tomorrow and Wednesday, but the silencer of the back line right now, Fernando Meza, did I read the quote properly where he said he hopes that Atlanta United plays a back three against Club America because they can be beaten?
He said it's two different things. No, you're adding a because in there, and that part is not true.
Okay.
He hopes they play a back three because he trusts that they can play a back three, and he says that Club America can be beaten. Period. And they can. I mean, they lost recently in league play kind of big after their Comunicaciones series. They were on the ropes multiple times against Pumas, and found a late equalizer to tie that one 3-3. That's going to give them some confidence coming into this. But they're missing pieces too. And they're not hitting on all cylinders right now. So it's the best time for an injured Atlanta United to face Club America. But that confidence, Meza knows this team. Meza has played against this team multiple times in the last couple of years. Meza knows what it is to deal with Club America at the Estadio Azteca, transmitting that confidence to his group. This is where he steps up and becomes more of a leader in this group. And I think if you paid any attention to the way Saturday night went, you have to respect Fernando Meza. And when I was talking before about 1v1 battles, I'm talking about the attack. That's what Frank de Boer and that's what any Dutch system is trying to create. But defensively, you'd like to not have 1v1 battles, but at times, look, it's going to happen. And Fernando Meza, for the most part, had to deal with Jurgen Locadia on Saturday night, completely shut him down, and did it in so many different ways. And that's what's so impressive about Meza, because he's not the biggest. He's not an imposing figure like a George Campbell, like a Miles Robinson. He doesn't have that blow-away speed like a Robinson or even a Campbell, who can cover so much ground with those long strides. Meza has to do it with brains. He has to read the game well. He has to jump in front of passing lanes. He has to have the strength to deal with a bigger player like Locadia. He has to do it differently than some others. And to shut down an 8-figure attacker who is a Premier League player and has played at big clubs and done big things, to shut him down the way that he did, if you're in that locker room, you have instant respect for Fernando Meza. So then when Fernando Meza says something like that, yes, we can go in and beat Club America, you're going to feel that differently. That's going to hit a little different right now after a game like Meza played on the weekend. And that's how these things evolve. We wondered who was going to take up some of the leadership in this team with Parkhurst retiring, with LGP gone. Who was going to be one of those leaders? We know Brad Kazan is a leader in this team. We've known Joseph Martinez is a leader in this team. Now he's out. Who was it going to be? Fernando Meza is grabbing that mantle and running with it right now.
Matt Wagner in this morning, he says, I really don't get the complaining from some of the fans. Aside from the one slip-up with Cincinnati's goal, I saw a very good team on Saturday night. Considering our injury situation right now, a 2-1 win is great. I'm not sure what people want. Hashtag Overreaction Monday.
You have to understand the storylines coming in. I mean, can it be better? Yes, always. You always have room to grow. There's no perfect performance in the game. There just isn't. I mean, you hope you find it. You hope you get close to it. We've seen some really good ones. You're never going to hit perfection. So you always have something to strive for in the next one. But it can be better. It can be better. It can be, I think you can see better changes of pace. You can see a little more decisiveness going forward. You can see quicker decisions being made. Things like that. Yeah, there's room for improvement. And that's completely fine. But it's pretty good to do what you did without Joseph Martinez, getting 2 goals without a goal scorer like Joseph. You have to be happy about that. And then to go into this with a back line that featured, Anton Walkes, who was brought for depth, who wasn't a player that Portsmouth wanted to keep at the time. You bring in Lawrence Wyke from Atlanta United 2, and then he's replaced by a player from your academy who is making his debut, and Fernando Meza on the back line, and you get the defensive performance that you did. You're happy. You have to be happy. You have to know that those storylines coming in, and you have to be happy. It's something where this team is going through a hard time right now, but they're making it look easy. And that's a credit to the group. Now, it's about to get even harder because of the level of competition. Club America is not Cincinnati or Nashville. Kansas City is not Cincinnati or Nashville. I don't think Chicago is Cincinnati or Nashville, and I don't think they're going to be that at Soldier Field. I think they're going to be much better. So it's going to get harder now. But where you're starting from with these injuries, You have to feel good about it. I think you have to have some positivity about it and expect it to go from here. If they get through Club America, and this is where things get weird with the way an Atlanta United gets covered. When Joseph went down, I think going into the Club America series, period, people said, "Oh, this is going to be really hard." Not many people would give Atlanta United would tag them as the favorites. If you put both teams at full strength, there would be a lot of people that would say, "Oh, Atlanta has no chance." I didn't subscribe to that theory, but a lot of people would. You take Joseph out of the equation. You have a Miles Robinson who hasn't played in a while. You have a Franco Escobar who's not 100% after having to be substituted in the Nashville match. You take all of that, and now most people don't give Atlanta any chance to get through Club America. They pull that off. I hope that tune changes. I really, really hope that tune changes because what they're doing right now is really impressive, and it just deserves respect. It's not easy. It's not easy to go into a match missing. I mean, depending on what you want to say on the left side at the wingback role, I don't think Mulroney was the intended starter there. I think it was George Bello and Edgar Castillo some. To go into a match, your second match of the season in regular season play, your fourth overall in competition, and have striker out, two center backs out, left wing back out, and get the performance that you did, that's got to make you feel pretty good.
For what it's worth, and it's way the hell early in all of this. Just out of curiosity, I went and tried to dig up early numbers, and Easter Candy Purveyors have Club America at minus 223 to win. The draw at plus 333 and Atlanta United at plus 550.
Yeah, and that is, I think, judging a lot of what Club America's injury situation is as well. So it's going to be incredibly difficult on Wednesday. And if you can get something out of this and give yourself a shot at home in that second leg, it would be an epic performance for Atlanta to find a way through Club America as beat up as they are. It would be an epic, epic kind of performance to do that. And I love Fernando Meza saying what he said and having that confidence and picking the moment to do it after a performance like he had. Because he's going to have another one at the Azteca. And he knows that building better than anybody else in this roster. And I think he's going to be looked to for that confidence in this one. And it's a big moment for him. And if it goes well and he has another big day and he helps Atlanta to a big result, I think those questions about leadership and where it's going to come from are going to go away. Because you're going to see it in Meza. And that's the opportunity that's here.
Chris Hutchison, to end hour number one, he says, I'm delighted to have 6 points at this point in the season, but I'm not sure what we can divine from these wins given the level of competition thus far. The match in Azteca should tell us quite a bit about the team's readiness, and I'm looking forward to watching it.
You can always take things from wins, and especially with what you're dealing with injury-wise at the moment. In my mind, what you can take from these wins is Fernando Meza is a top center back in this league. Pity Martinez and Ezequiel Parco are ready to take on the pressure without Joseph Martinez. You've got a system that I think can really work and cause teams problems, and you're still finding the best combinations with it. And you've built a good bit of depth in this system. And I'm sorry, anybody who's questioning the depth of this team right now is just missing the absolute point. With the performances you're getting, take the opponent out of it, the quality of the performances you're getting from players who were not intended to be playing at this point, you have to give credit to the depth. And anybody questioning it, I'm sorry, you're just incorrect at this stage. Completely and utterly missing the plot. Because in MLS with the way it's structured, could they have more players of the Lawrence White, George Campbell variety on the bench? Sure, you could, because that's the room you really have at the moment. Could you have added one other player in a different position on the field? Sure. But who would you have bumped out of the starting lineup before? For all the questioning of the depth, if you're going to go get somebody like that, okay, who are you going to bump? There really wasn't an obvious solution. So you had players who could play a number of positions. Well, now you have a number of players who've been injured, and that versatility has come to the fore. But you've also gotten those performances out of a Wyke, out of a Campbell, out of a Mulroney, out of an Adam John, who put in a shift. I mean, did Adam John get a ton of touches? No. Did it look like he hadn't played with his teammates? Yeah, because he hadn't. Did he work hard? Did he give you an effort? Did he help open things up? Yeah, he did. He worked hard. That's the part he can control. So you got those performances out of depth. To say that now they don't have depth, well, of course, they have a bunch of players injured. You have limits in MLS. You just do. And you have to manage it as best you can. So anybody questioning the depth of this team right now, I just don't get it. And I think you're looking for something to complain about, because not many teams can do what Atlanta did on Saturday night with the injuries they had. Go back and look at Kansas City last year. Go back and look at it. Go back and look at Toronto in 2018 and the injuries they had and the kinds of things that were happening to them. And compare what Atlanta's done so far. Yeah, you played Cincinnati and Nashville. The narrative coming from Cincinnati after game one was, man, that's a bad 45 minutes, but it was a good second 45. And then you look at the talent they've went out to acquire. Their attacking talent's good. Didn't look so good Saturday night. Nashville, look at what they did going to Portland. They didn't roll over in Portland on the road. These are not just easy throwaway games at this point. And you're doing it with a less than full strength roster. So it's going to get tougher, and that's not saying that, just because you had these two performances, everything's hunky-dory. It's going to get tougher. But you're dealing with a lot of depth, playing a lot of minutes that were not intended for them right now, and you're getting results for it. And that's impressive.
And what was it that Frank said post-match about Adam John, that he worked his bollocks off?
Yeah, Frank said bollocks a few times, and people get excited when Frank mentions the word bollocks. He worked hard. I mean, if you were watching the match, you had to see it. John made a ton of different runs off the ball. He fought for the long ball when it was played. He dropped in and helped defend. He was a presence on set pieces, both attacking and defending. Can he give you more? Yeah, I thought at times they needed to play him more. They needed to use him even more. I think the times that they did, it really worked well. But you've got to build up that chemistry. He just doesn't have the time on the field with Pitti and Barco like Joseph had. So they don't know where he's going to pop up. They don't anticipate his runs. They don't anticipate all of his positioning. And that's to be expected. You would hope that it gets better. But the part that Adam John could control, coming in and replacing a legend like Joseph Martinez, who's injured, and all the emotions that go into that, the part that he could control was how hard he worked. And he gave you everything he could in this match.
Katie Weaver, with us starting an hour earlier than normal. She says, on Daylight Savings Monday, bold. Make sure John has Mountain Dew. And she also says the Philadelphia-LAFC match was bonkers last night. What's that they say about being most vulnerable when you just scored a goal? And then I guess it's a yikes emoji. I can't really figure out which emoji it is, but it's the one where the emoji has its teeth bared.
Yeah, that would work. That's a decent play-by-play interpretation of it. I'll take that.
Try.
I mean, if we're going to go an hour early, this is the best time to do it, right? Because it would have been 9 o'clock for Friday's show. So it's not that bad.
Speak for yourself.
It's not that bad.
Joe Bost says, early? I'm still half asleep. Hashtag Meza is the man, and PT may give Vela a run. Hashtag Unite and Conquer.
I hope that Pitti gets that kind of credit. He hasn't so far, and that's just the basic thing. We see it all the time, and I don't know why it's this way for all sports. You have great players who have an Atlanta name on their crest, and for whatever reason, every bit of shade that can be thrown their way is. I mean, we're seeing it in the NBA right now with Trae Young, who is doing things. Feels like every other week, Trae is accomplishing something that it's like, this has only been done by Michael Jordan. This has only been done by Oscar Robertson. This has only been done by LeBron James and Michael Jordan. And it's just ridiculous that people are still not putting him in the Olympic team list, not in the top 50. It's ridiculous that people are still like, yeah, he doesn't play defense.
Ugh.
He's not good enough on defense. It's like, what is, like, he's carrying this team that missed John Collins for most of the season because of a stupid decision. And the only reason that they're at all competitive is because of Trae Young. And it's like, you want to find something to criticize. Sounds familiar, the whole defense thing, doesn't it?
Yeah,
Sounds
slightly.
familiar about a certain number 10.
Yeah.
I don't get it. I've never understood it. It's always been the case. It's always been. Michael Vick was redefining what a quarterback was in the NFL. And it's like, oh, well, he's not a drop back passer. Well, did you see him run by 7 different players and 2 guys run into each other because he was so fast and he scored a touchdown to win a game? But you're going to find something to criticize. Okay, that's fine. Dominique Wilkins. Well, he doesn't have an outside shot. He develops an outside shot. Well, he's just not as good as Michael Jordan. He's not as good as this. He's not as good as that. It's like, come on. Pity Martinez is an outstanding talent. He didn't win the South American Player of the Year award because of a lucky vote. It didn't happen that way. Ezequiel Barco didn't win the Copa Sudamericana, wasn't named one of the top young talents out of South America because people liked his haircut. You know, like, these guys are talented players, and they have given you production. Can they continue to improve? Yes. Can they continue to be more consistent? Yes. Pitti especially. And I thought since the middle of last season, he has. You know, go back and total up the numbers in terms of production, goals, assists, chances created since about the midway point of last season. And you'd be pretty surprised when you look at Pitti's production. And this year, I mean, if you're questioning it, I don't know what to tell you. Same with Barco. The night Barco had on Saturday, to see national pundits not mention it, and the only thing they post about it is to post one time that he should have played the ball a little bit sooner to avoid an offside. You know, and that's the only thing that's being shared from a put the team on your back because you're missing your top scorer kind of performance that Ezequiel Barco gave on Saturday. That tells you all you need to know. So Pitti should be so far in that conversation. I hope he continues to be. I'm not going to expect him to be nationally because that's just how it's always been. But that doesn't really matter. Gwen agrees. She gets mad at the national pundits too. It's not about the pundits. It's not about the written word, the podcasted word, the televised word. It's about getting results. And I think all of this adversity early on helps this group just get back to the basics of we're going to come together. It is us against the world, and we're going to go and shock the hell out of people. And that's the attitude you got to have on Wednesday, and that's the attitude you got to have against, so far early in the season, a juggernaut like Kansas City and their attack. And, see, Gwen's all fired up this morning. And that's what you got to have. That's what you have to have with what Atlanta's facing right now. So the talk, in some ways, can help motivate this team and help push them forward. And I hope that they take it that way.
Chris Hutchison, again this morning, very, very busy with us, and we appreciate folks who keep diving in. Chris says, what? Atlanta fans show up late for an event? That's never happened before.
Yes. That is a common thing, and it is, I think, an even more common thing for game one without the ID cards, with everybody dealing with their phones, and it's game one. It happens. We've seen it, I think, every year where this goes down. I thought it was a good crowd. I thought it was a very strong crowd, and when you're getting into this level of, well, all 69,000 weren't there at kickoff, and maybe some people
You're
didn't
looking for stuff.
show. Yeah, it's like, really? I mean, I remember pro games that were listed as 5,000, and I'm like, wait, I didn't know even close to 5,000. Like, come on. I've been in the press box at pro games where it's like, well, what number are we going to come up with? Uh, I don't want to actually go count these people, so what are we going to say? Like, it's
Some random prime number that they just pop into their head. It's like,
no, it's
it's
just
over.
whatever number can look decent. Like, that wasn't that long ago. So to be quibbling over, well, everybody wasn't there to kick off 69, so this is a problem. This is something to be concerned about. Come on. You do have this big issue that people are freaking out about being in large public gatherings too. That does have a bit of an effect.
Yes.
There's lots of stuff going on at the moment, but to have that many people that loud on Saturday night supporting this team, I think you might be looking too hard if there's something to complain about with it.
Daniel Price in this morning for his hashtag Overreaction Monday. Great game on Saturday. Glad to be back home again. Thoughts? Barco has been excellent thus far. PT's coming into his own and huge with multiple U's. Props to Atlanta United Academy. All these players coming in and stepping up when we need them. This was a great showing.
And huge credit to Atlanta United too, as well, and Stephen Glass and his staff for getting a player like Lawrence Wyke up to this point. Campbell coming to the academy, playing with Glassy and his staff last year, is big. Wyke was identified and brought in by this club from Furman. They thought, and that's the thing that you have to look at when you look at the Twos roster, is you bring in guys who are expected to compete and raise the level of a group that, yeah, you're going to feature academy players in it, like Campbell last year, like Will Riley last year and this year. You're going to have that. But you're also picking guys that you think have a future. You're not just bringing in a random player because they're available. You're bringing in a player like a Lawrence Wyke because you see him and you're like, man, there's something here. Can we get it out of him? Can we elevate him to another level? Can we get him to a point where he can be an MLS player? And they have. And the players that you brought in this time around, we talked to Bradley Camden-Feo before the season. He could have picked anywhere he wanted to go in the USL Championship. He had that kind of season at St. Louis. Could have went back to St. Louis. He could have went elsewhere. And he decided to come here because, one, he liked the way that the team played. They impressed him. But also it's an opportunity because you are going to get called in to train with the first team. You are going to, in Camden-Feo's case, make a trip to Mexico and be with the group to face Leones Negros. You're going to have opportunities like that because if you perform, you're going to get noticed. And it's a credit to the scouting, it's a credit to the development, and it's a credit to be able to ride through these early season struggles with injuries and availability and keep getting results. Because the name of the game, that's what it's all about. You can judge the style, you can want to see more goals, you can want to see fewer missed passes, whatever you're looking for, but 3 points is 3 points, and every 3 points you get is going to help you achieve your goals. And your goals, this club, trophies. Any trophy, all the trophies. And winning games is going to help you get there.
Nathan Pugh in this morning, and I also anticipate Nathan being with us for Soccer Over There tonight from the Brew House with their 9,452 television. He says, are y'all going to talk about Orlando? And before you start, just a reminder that Jason has been high on Colorado before the season started. So he's how many Colorado guys do you have on your fantasy team, or have you had on your fantasy team?
I don't pick Colorado guys for my fantasy team just because I've been high in Colorado. I'm not. I mean, I enjoy the fantasy soccer. I'm talking about Colorado as a team in the Western Conference to pay attention to because they have been since they let Anthony Hudson go. I mean, let's
Yes,
be real about it.
exactly.
They have made a lot of changes, and they made a bunch last summer, and not big high profile changes, not these huge big transfer sagas and bringing in a bunch of money and spending all this crazy cash and bringing in these big names. They went out and they got guys within the league and they turned over their roster a bit, and whatever wasn't working with Anthony Hudson started to work with Connor Casey and has found another level under Robin Fraser. And I think you've seen it to start the season. They go to DC, they weather the storm a little bit in the first 60 minutes. DC runs out of gas, and Colorado goes and finds a late winner. What do they do at home? They're playing Orlando, who is just sitting back because, look, Orlando right now doesn't have anything really in the attack. Nani was suspended for the first two games. Dom Dwyer's injured, and you can say what you want about Dwyer, but he would be your starter. You don't really have much going forward. You get a goal here, and Orlando is just sitting back and sitting back and sitting back, and they're happy with their point. They were just trying to survive this one, and Colorado goes and finds another winner. And to go get a guy like Drew Moore to add to this group, it's key because that's that veteran leader, and he's a guy who bleeds for this club. It's where he spent a ton of time before he went to Toronto. To bring him back, it was the perfect kind of acquisition. Colorado is just very good. They're not spectacular. They're not going to blow you away with looking at their roster and looking at resumes, but they're just really, really good. Jack Price, holding midfielder, 27, not a heralded player. Really strong. Eunice Nomley coming in, gets a great goal. Kai Kamara at 35 is still doing it up top. Keegan Rosenberry was a player that I really liked in Philadelphia, and for whatever reason, fell out of favor. Got on the wrong side of Jim Curtin, was shipped out to Colorado. I mean, he's a national team level talent. They find a way to get Lalas Abubakar first on loan and then get him under contract. He's still developing at 25, but he's a guy who went through the college system. Still kind of learning how to be a pro. Dangerous. You had the Rookie of the Year last year in Shin Yashiki, who's still playing well this year. Sam Vines, young player that they've developed, getting national team attention. Kellen Acosta, who I think most people looked at as the name in the group when they got him from Dallas. He's been good, but he hasn't been carrying this team. So there's still room, I think, for them to get better. Jonathan Lewis is a player that you want to see have more of an impact. Benezet hasn't played yet. You've still got room to grow with this group, but it's a good group. It's a really well-coached team, and it's a good group. And now they've got 6 points. They go to Vancouver next week. They host Houston the following week. You could see a Colorado Rapids team that is on 12 points at the international break.
Yeah, Nathan was going to ask if we were going to talk about Orlando and then gave us the Mr. Bean winking gif.
For Orlando, it's hard to judge them until they get Nani back in the team. It really is. I mean, that's the margins they're dealing with right now. Oscar Pereja, I really do believe will figure it out and make Orlando into something that you have to pay attention to. But without Nani, without Dwyer, you're struggling right now. I mean, you're just gonna struggle. Chris Mueller came off the bench, got you a goal. It was a really good finish from him. Pereira got the assist, or Pereira, sorry, got the assist. A good ball from him to play Mueller in. But it's hard to judge them until they get Nani. You almost got out of Colorado with a point, which would have been a good performance because this is not the same Rapids team that you remember from the older days that you could go into Colorado and smack them around. They're not that team anymore. If Orlando had gotten a point, it would have been a good point. But it's hard to judge them until they get Nani back in the group, and we'll see next week for them, because now you've got Orlando, who has a point so far this season. It wasn't a compelling one at home against RSL. They nearly found a point in Colorado. It's a really good test this weekend as they host Chicago, because it's two teams that are still figuring it out, that I don't really know how to feel about either one just yet. Two teams that I think will be much improved from last season, but I don't know where they are at the moment. So that's a bit of a measuring stick game, Orlando, Chicago, next Saturday.
Ricky Ricardo won this morning. He says, as exciting as LAFC Philly was, that can only be countered by how bland and out of ideas the Galaxy looked against Vancouver. # on par reaction Monday.
Yeah, man, the knives are out for the Galaxy, aren't they? It's like
Yep.
2 games that Chicharito doesn't get a goal, and he's terrible. He's washed up, and I mean, wow, we were celebrating him, 180 minutes ago. It's a little quick, but when you look at the 2 games combined, I agree with the out of ideas part of it, and this is something that was brought up about Guillermo Barros Escaloto when his name popped up as coming to MLS after his time at Boca. People said that he won at Boca in the league because he had the most talent, and that's true. I mean, Boca has the most money in Argentina, and he always had the most talent. And they said that he didn't win in Libertadores because tactically it was not all that developed. It was pretty basic. And last year, you had to play that way because of Zlatan. You weren't going to ask Zlatan to press. You couldn't really press around him. So, you kind of had to do what you did last year, which was lump the ball forward, play it into space for him to get to where he can reach it, put in crosses, and take your chances. And it went as far as it could go. But now you have a different kind of forward in Chicharito. You have a talent in Pavon. You have a talent in Katai, a different kind of talent, but a talent. And you're still lumping in a bunch of crosses, and you're still kind of basic. They've got more talent than that. And I don't really know what their idea behind their game is. I think when you look at Atlanta, without Joseph, you could still see that this team had an idea of the way they wanted to play. Was it always coming off? No, that's not the point. Did they have an idea of how they wanted to play? Yes. You look at a lot of teams in this league. LAFC, you see them, you know how they want to play. Portland in the match, even as defensive as they were, you knew how they wanted to play. You knew what their identity was in that. Nashville, 2 games in MLS. I think you know how they want to play. I think there's a lot of teams that you have that understanding of, you know how they want to approach a match. Doesn't mean it comes off, but you know what they want to do. LA Galaxy, I don't really know. I mean, to me, just lumping in a bunch of crosses isn't a game plan. So, and it doesn't match what they have now. So that's the biggest question for them that I have. I'm not worried about Chicharito and going to freak out about him. It's bigger than that. I don't know if the Galaxy have a tactical identity. And if they don't by now, when are they going to find it?
Chris Hutchison with the early Sex Pistols reference this morning. He says, never mind the bollocks, here comes Atlanta United.
Yeah, that's Frank's new word. He likes it.
Katie Weaver in this morning listing a 4-4-2 of the following individuals. Joseph, Brandon Vasquez up top. A midfield of Justin Miram, Darlington, Nagbe, Gressel, and Tito, and a back 4 of Bello, Miles, LGP, and Franco with Aaron Hyde in net. She says, this team of injured and or dealt Atlanta United players could definitely win a trophy. Impressive what Atlanta has done so far with this year's group.
I don't know if they're going to win a trophy. Aaron Hyde, I don't know if he's going to be able to get you a trophy playing in goal. Yeah, I mean, it's hard. You've had to make changes in the roster. The salary cap's played a big part of it. You just, kind of got to that time with some players that it was time to move on. And, you know, these things happen. And then on top of it, you get all the injuries that you've had this season. And it's all, unlucky. I mean, Bello with a concussion, like that's just wild collision and nothing you can do to prepare for that. Robinson pulls something. You hope it doesn't become a recurring thing for him. It's a different injury than he had with the national team, but that happens. That's part of the sport. You get Castillo with an unlucky shot to the rib. That's not something that normally happens. It's just all kinds of weird stuff. I mean, the White collision, it's another concussion. Escobar, it's more like a dead leg. You want to be careful with it, so hopefully that's not a big deal. But the Joseph one's a freak accident, and you're just having to deal, and you're dealing right now by getting points. That's where you're at. You just have to keep moving that forward.
3 more tweets catch us up on the timeline this morning. First one from James McClatchy about getting into MBS. He said there were unusual delays at security. Got to gate 1 at 6:45. Missed the first 7 minutes of the game. This was not usual last year. Lines moved very slowly. The worst part was that he missed the Joseph cheer.
Yeah, I would say to James that getting to the gate at 6:45 for a 7:08 kick is cutting it pretty close. And I don't know what it was last year, so that might not be cutting it close in general. But it's maybe I'm just constantly freaking out about it. I like to get there early and not have anything potentially go wrong. So that for me, I'd be freaking out. I do think that the change in entry with everything being mobile probably had a role in that, as things generally do for the first time. So that would be my guess. But yeah, I think leaving yourself a little extra time, especially early in the season while the kinks get worked out with the digital thing. I mean, I don't know if the issues were on the user side or on the other side. I would assume that you had some people who maybe got caught with app issues or whatever and slowed it up, but just give yourself a little extra time in the early going because of it. I would definitely give yourself a little extra time next week.
Ricky Ricardo, a couple of thoughts back to back. He says he wonders if you're going to have the chance to get onto the field at the Azteca before the match. If so, Ricky needs you to take a picture of the Hand of God spot.
I don't know if I'll be able to get that far on the field. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know how it's going to go with everything, but we'll be flying down later today, and training will be at the Azteca tomorrow, and Mike and I will have some work to do to figure out broadcast position and broadcast plans, because it's not a typical U.S. venue. It's not a brand new venue like Monterey was last year that was easy. It's a little difficult, so we're going to have to figure some stuff out. Once we get that figured out, maybe we'll be able to get a few pictures or something, but I'm not even thinking like pictures for me. I just want to experience it. So I wasn't even thinking about the Hand of God spot. I was honestly thinking more of where they handed the World Cup trophy over, like that kind of spot. That's what I was thinking more of. But it's gonna be cool. I mean, I'm pumped about it. I am really excited about getting a chance to see this venue that I've watched so many games from, and I mean, it was honestly the venue that it was the first World Cup final I saw. It was, I think a lot of people, because I talk about the '86 World Cup and being where I fell in love with the game, a lot of people think of the Hand of God and that goal. I didn't see that live. I didn't see that game because it was the summer of '86, and it wasn't like you had, like guides on cable to find stuff, and I was still just figuring out what was going on, let alone like knowing how important it was. For me, it was the semifinal. It was the game against Belgium that got me, and that was at the Azteca. And the goals that Maradona scored in that one are the ones that probably mean more to me from personal memory, and in the final, which is one of the all-time great World Cup finals. Those are the games that mean the most to me. So, the Hand of God is iconic, don't get me wrong, but like it's a memory that I acquired in my lifetime because I didn't see it live. The semifinal I saw live, the final I saw live. Those are the ones that have the immediate personal memory for me.
And then Ricky, with the mention this morning that Paris police are saying the Champions League game between PSG and Borussia Dortmund will be played without fans. Ricky says, do people really have to complain about attendance numbers when stuff like this is happening?
Yeah, and that's the whole point. I mean, look, we're in kind of uncharted territory with all of this, so it's difficult. I really hope it doesn't get to that point here. I don't think you can rule it out unilaterally. I think you have to consider that it could. Hopefully it doesn't. I think if people are smart and prepare properly, that everything can be okay. But in some parts of the world, it's gotten past that point, and you have to be careful. And if you're at risk of any kind of flu, cold, whatever, you have to think twice right now. And they're taking that decision out of people's hands in other parts of the world. Here, I'm sure that affected some of the numbers. I mean, I saw people's, concerns. I see things on Twitter or Facebook and people being concerned about it. I totally get it. So, did that affect it some on Saturday? It absolutely could have. It definitely did in Seattle. I think it did in Portland as well. And, again, it's to be expected.
Percy Herrera's in this morning. He says the knives are out for sure on the Galaxy. But can we talk about how much more exciting it is to watch paint dry than endure a Timbers game?
Whew. That was rough. It's kind of sad to see them have to resort to playing that way because that was an overly exaggerated sit back, defend, don't risk anything than what I normally think of when it comes to a Giovanni Savarese team. I mean, his teams are best on the counter. His teams are best hitting out in space. When you have guys like Valeri and Blanco, you want to give them that opportunity. But man, I think in that first game, maybe it's just Minnesota, spooked them in terms of when the Timbers would get numbers forward, they were getting exposed badly on the counter. And maybe this is the foundation of what Savarese wants to do to make this team better and not have what happened last year and not have what happened in week one happen again. And maybe it is exaggerated early on. I hope they don't play that way the whole season. I don't think they will. I think with talent like they have up top, they'll open the game up more. But transition, I'm curious to see how they deal with it better because what they did to deal with it last night was to avoid transition at all costs. They just said, here, you guys have it. We're not going to get caught in transition because we're not going to transition the other way. We're just going to stay here. You guys come on, bring it on. We're good. We're going to sit over here. We're not going to go on the other half of the field and get caught in transition trying to get back and defend. That's what the Timbers did last night. And, hey, they got 3 points. I mean, if you put that performance in Nashville instead of being in Portland, it might have a little bit different feel. But at home, it was, wow. This is how they have to get 3 points? They did. It's better than week one, but it wasn't really compelling.
Bartimus Prime in this morning. 5 takes on the 5 stripes. We'll take them one at a time on his Overreaction Monday. 2 games, 2 goals each for Barco and Heineman. Love that production, but...
But?
Yes.
Okay.
... He went Larry King. It was ellipses.
All right. I want to hear the but.
Okay. It's probably in a subsequent communication. Number 2.
Okay. I have no response to the number 1.
Okay. Number 2. Though we dominated possession but still didn't create enough in the final third, having to hold on at the end.
Yes.
Yes.
That's true.
Yes.
I don't know how much having to hold on. I think that might be a little exaggerated.
Number 3. I think John up top gives PT and Barco more room to run underneath him. Seemed they had more space this match.
Yeah, I mean, because John approaches the forward role differently. He's not dropping as deep. He's, more of a target, so center backs are going to stay with him a little more than come out and chase. When Joseph drops, he's able to combine with Pitti and Barco, but it does crowd the space a little bit. Now it's different. It might be better. It might not be better. It is different. And yeah, they did have more space in this one. I'll agree with that.
Number 4. Thank God for an Academy/twos team. Depth is surprisingly okay compared to other MLS teams.
Yeah, depth is good. I think if you're questioning the depth, like, you're not paying attention to the minutes you've gotten out of, just this season. George Gamble, Lawrence Wyke, Luis Fernando, Jake Mulroney, Anton Walks, Adam John. Those were not intended starters and key contributors at this point. So that's strong depth at the moment.
And his 5th one is, home wins are great. #thanks for the Moes.
Yeah, always that. It's you just have to compare and you have to look at this. Atlanta United won in a way that they played, I think, their game. Was it maybe a little more, especially early? I think it was a little more conservative. I think they were trying to figure out. Cincinnati dropped back more. I didn't expect that because Cincinnati has talked a lot about wanting to come out and press and put pressure on. They dropped back a lot early on. And Atlanta didn't do anything reckless and just bomb forward with numbers and get caught. They didn't do that. So it was a little slower at first. You started to find the openings. You get 2 goals. You get up 2-0. Then, you didn't get the 3rd goal that would have absolutely put it away. You give up a great goal, and that's the game. I didn't feel like it was. I wasn't on edge at the end in any sense that the way Cincinnati was playing worried me. I would have loved a 3rd goal to where then you're not worried about it because of the score line. But Cincinnati didn't create a ton of dangerous chances. Could Atlanta have created more? Yes. And you look at some of the breaks where timing was off. You look at some plays where the pass wasn't given that should have been. I think they could have used Adam John a little bit more in build-up and played off of him a little bit more. We'll see if that continues to develop as they build a relationship with him up top. It can be better, but I'll take that as a first step.
Sean Vergara is in this morning, and he says he just got a fan council survey email on the ticket experience. He says it must have had a lot of bad feedback. I had no issue, but I'm sure that's what caused the delays at the gates.
Yeah, it very well could have. I think it's a pretty safe guess that there were issues with that. So we will see how it gets better. I honestly think some of it is just getting used to the idea. Gwen's trying to give some advice, but she didn't go to the match, so I don't know what she's chiming in with right now. It'll just get better with experience. But yeah, they need to iron out any kinks and make it as easy as possible.
Kefsi is looking for assistance from the SDH universe this morning.
Uh-oh.
Wanted to crowdsource some info for the next home game. Planning on attending the Sporting Kansas City game with 2 birthday celebrators. So what's the best field level upgrade, or what have y'all done/heard that is good for a little something extra? All appreciated. Prayers up, hands up, thank you emoji.
I do not know. That one's going to be on the peeps. So chime in and help Kefsi out.
Yes, so crowdsourcing is appreciated here, SDHers. We are caught up on the Twitters for the moment, sir. Where would you like to go next?
We'll run through the results from the weekend really quickly. So, and just kind of some thoughts from things that we saw. New England, Chicago. New England should have won the game. Justin Rennick said the miss of the weekend with a opportunity in the inside the 6. I want to say maybe 5 yards from goal that I don't know how he missed. I don't know how he put it over. I have no idea. New England should have had 3 points. They should have had 3 points, or at least a draw the week before, because they had a miss like that in Montreal. So they get a point against Chicago. Chicago has shown improvement. They're not a finished product yet. We'll see what they're looking like with this match with Orlando coming up this weekend. That's going to be a really interesting one in the Eastern Conference. Real Salt Lake 1-1 with the Red Bulls. Late goal from Damir Kreilach. Red Bulls are probably pretty happy about it. I mean, you go out on the road, you go to Utah, you get a point. I don't think they had ever gotten a point in Utah before, so you take that, you run with it. Dallas and Montreal. Montreal getting a point on the road in this one is shocking to me. Now, they did play a lot of their regulars, which I didn't expect. Maxi Urruti got 2 goals, which I didn't expect against his former team. The Cobra Ondrasik pulled back 1. That made it 2-1. And then it was a 96th minute goal from Ricardo Pepi, the teenager, who is a product of the academy, a product of North Texas SC in USL League One. Montreal, it's kind of the Saprissa away leg kind of feeling. It's like you're happy you got 2 goals. You're happy you had a 2-0 lead. You're not happy that you blew the 2-0 lead. Against Saprissa, those 2 goals counted a little bit more because they gave you the cushion that you could just come back home and shut up shop and advance. Here, it's enough for a point, but it feels a little worse that you didn't get all 3 with a 2-0 lead. That's one that Thierry Henry is not going to be too happy about, but they have a quick turn. They played Tuesday night against Olympia in CONCACAF Champions League play. DC came back to get a 2-1 win. Miami gets their first goal in their existence through Rodolfo Pizarro. Second minute, too. Yamil Assad on a penalty, and then a couple minutes later, Frederick Briant. DC kind of had to hold on for dear life at the end of this. They did. They get the 3 points. It's better than week 1. It's still not great. Toronto beating New York City. Now, the knives have been out for New York City, too, and that's honestly really surprising me because you go to Toronto. Toronto's a top team in the East. Even without Michael Bradley, Pablo Piatti, easing in, they're a top team in the East. So you go there and you lose on the road. It's not the most shocking thing in the world. They went to Columbus and lost on the road. They had a red card in the second minute. To only lose 1-0 there and to have an opportunity, you're happy with that. So I think some of the context has been completely lost from the criticisms in New York City. I think they're going to be okay. Now, they get into CONCACAF this week again, and they've got a tough one with Tigres. We'll see how they do there. Maybe we'll have a better judgment on what New York City is after that, but I'm not freaking out about them so far in league play because of the situations. Freaking out a little bit about Minnesota and how good they've been. 5 goals in San Jose, and Matias Almeida just said, look, we weren't good enough. And they fully deserved everything they got out of it. 5 goals in San Jose, 3 goals in Portland, 8 goals on the road, 6 points on the road. Adrian Heath said this is the best group he's ever had. I agree. And Minnesota's a problem in the Western Conference. Sporting Kansas City, we've talked about, they're a problem in the Western Conference. They are perfect so far, along with Colorado and Minnesota. 4-0 over Houston, an overmatched Houston Dynamo. It's going to take Tab Ramos a little bit of time. It just is. He has to change the culture. He has to improve some things there, and this shows it. He also has to get some guys healthy. Albert Ellis and Darwin Quintero not being fully fit is really hurting them right now in the attack. We've talked about Colorado. We've talked about the Galaxy in Vancouver. I did not expect Vancouver to get the win. I wish I'd taken an old moldy juice box and thrown it on it because that was a pretty big number.
You ain't kidding, brother.
What was the number on that? Do you remember? It's like 800 or 900.
Oh. Yeah, it was 900.
Yeah, I mean, it was huge. Seattle, Columbus. Seattle had to scrap for a point and kind of dodgy in the way that they got it. So Eloy Rooney came off his line. There's no question on a penalty. He came off his line. He made the save. the AR didn't signal for it. It went to VAR, and they judged him to come off his line, which he did. I mean, once it went to VAR, it's coming back. You're going to take the penalty again, and it was converted this time by Raul Ruiz-Diaz. Now, if you remember, after all the controversy in the Women's World Cup, the Premier League said, we're not going to use VAR for these moments. I thought MLS had said that, but I can't find it, so maybe I was imagining it. Some other leagues have said that they're not going to use VAR for those moments. Well, MLS did here, and it was correct. It was the right call. There's no question about that. It wasn't that close. But we get just the weird situation. They get the goal. They equalize. Seattle gets a point at home. Not the most convincing. Portland, Nashville. Portland lit buses on fire. They got 3 points, which they needed desperately. They've struggled early in seasons. They get 3 here. You're going to look back at it in July, August, and not remember how they got it. Right now, it's like, wow, that's really negative. And LAFC Philly just bonkers. Go watch the highlights and some of the goals. The free kicks from Vela and Glesnes were outstanding. Great goal from Sergio Santos. Great goal from Rossi. Yeah, I mean you've got lots of goal of the week categories in that one. You got the 2 free kicks, the goals from Santos and Rossi as well. I mean, the goal from Brendan Aronson is going to get lost in the shuffle, and that's a really well taken goal from Aronson to give them the 3-2 lead that they couldn't hold. So, good weekend in MLS. You had maybe an even better goal in USL Championship. Junior Burgos, former Atlanta Silverback, former Atlanta United player on the books in 2016, with an incredible goal for Vegas in San Diego. That was a fun one with Landon Donovan and Eric Winalda facing off on the coaching side of things. And USL Championship got underway with some big results, some big games around the horn. We'll talk a little bit about Atlanta United too. I thought they played well with 3 academy players in the starting lineup. Charleston didn't create a ton from the run of play. They get, in my opinion, a very fortunate penalty.
Yep.
Will Riley, arms down, Zico Lewis chipped it into his hand. It's the one that people have feared with just any kind of handball call, that it's pretty close. It didn't look like Riley tried to put his arms out to get bigger. His arms were down, I thought, by his side from the angles we had. And the ball hits his hand. It wasn't hand to ball. It wasn't arm to ball. It was ball to arm, ball to hand in this case. I don't know what else he could have done. So it was kind of unlucky for the Twos. They produced a good bit. They weren't good enough in the final third, and it's something that they're going to have to find a striker up top. Goodrum is not really a true number 9. Goodrum's more of an attacking midfielder who's playing a number 9. I think it showed at times. Amir Bashti showed a lot of initiative, wasn't able to go the full 90. He had the best chance of the day. Long-range effort that was tipped onto the bar by Phil Brino. It was a good match. It was an entertaining match. I think Atlanta deserved something out of it, and they don't get it. The Battery, find a way to get through. The Battery were very physical. I think Atlanta tried to play its game. It was a bold, approach, and it was very similar to the way the first team plays. It was the 3-4-3/3-4-2-1, and you had 2 central midfielders in Amir Bashti, who's a very attack-minded central midfielder, and Will Riley, an academy player, 17 years old, playing together in the middle of the park. And they had some rough moments, but they both improved as the day went on in those roles, which, required a lot of balance. I love to see the progression, because I thought the team played better in the 90th minute than they did in the first minute. And that's what you want to see. And you're going to need to see a jump next week too, because on Sunday they face Louisville City, who is a top team in this league, in the league as a whole, especially in the Eastern Conference. And Atlanta's going to have to be better with the Twos next week, or Louisville City is going to punish them for some of the mistakes that Charleston just wasn't able to punish them for.
Cameron Lancaster coming to town with Lou City, and we know what his goal-scoring prowess is and what we've seen from life in the USL Championship. But home games early for the Twos up at the Fractions. So come on out and see the Twos go after it in the USL Championship. It's a good month to catch the twos up in Kennesaw at Fifth Third.
All right. Any more tweets before we wrap up an early edition of SDH on a Monday?
Yeah, we got a couple. And I also have found out the alleged secret to the fantasy league this year, the hook that is different than last year. Because I got an email and then I looked at at my fantasy team, and so I figured out the hook this year. But
you got an email and you figured out a hook. Oh, jeez. Okay.
Yes. Daniel Price says he recommends doing club seats in the crowdsourcing that Kefsey was looking for.
Okay.
You're allowed to step foot on the field and get up behind both the away and the home bench if you choose Delta Club. It's well worth it. You also have access to the tunnel and can high-five the players as they go on and off the pitch.
Cool.
So early returns are from Daniel Price. So continue crowdsourcing Kefsey's request. And Ricky Ricardo, after seeing a response from Taylor Twellman about something that happened in the Manchester Derby, says that the Scott McTominay just proved that the Willis decision last week from pro/VAR in MLS doesn't add up. At this level, anything from 50 yards and out is an opportunity, and Ricky Ricardo agreed.
Yeah, but that's not what pro said. So they never denied that it wasn't an opportunity. They said the opportunity was taken. It's a different conversation. And this is why the language and I think the clarity is very, very important. Yes, anything from 50 yards out is an opportunity. And nobody's arguing that. Pro said that this was not the same denying of an obvious goal scoring opportunity because the opportunity was taken. The shot was taken. He didn't trip him. He didn't throw him to the ground. He didn't grab him. He didn't do any of those. The shot was taken. The opportunity was taken. The question, which I do think they got wrong, but I'm disagreeing for a different reason. The question and what Pro put out there is that it wasn't an obvious goal. Opportunity has nothing to do with it. Now, that's why I don't like the way they judged this, because you only saw the flight of the ball for 10 yards. There was still another 40 to go. It looked like it was close enough to being on goal. Now, there was a defender back there somewhere, but I don't know. We never got an angle of that. Don't know how close they were. But this is where you're creating a slippery slope if you're pro, because, okay, it's a shot on goal, or at least in the general vicinity of the goal. Let's put it that way to protect our proper language here. So it is a shot with power, with pace, that is headed towards the general vicinity of the goal. And you say that it's okay that Joe Willis knocked it down with his hand because it wasn't an obvious goal. I would say, well, what if the defender fell down? If you think the defender is just going to be there because he's back that way, what if he falls down? How many times have you seen a goalkeeper fall down? How many times have you seen a goalkeeper let a ball get through his hands? How many times have you seen, somebody whiff? So now you're changing where the bar is by that explanation. That's what I don't like about it. You're saying it's not an obvious goal. So you're saying that it never happens where a defender or a goalkeeper misses an obvious shot. No, we know that's not the case. What Twellman said in that's not what Pro said. So it's a different argument. That's not why Pro said that the call was correct. Pro said it was not an obvious goal. And I disagree because you're then assuming things that you can't assume. That's why I don't like the precedent that's set, because now, if you are in that situation, you should knock it down with your arm. And you should immediately say, Joe Willis, Joe Willis, Joe Willis. That's it. That's what you've created by Pro's decision, and I don't like it at all. But it's a different conversation because of what their justification was. It's a different conversation than the way Twellman put it in that tweet. I agree with him in principle, but the situation was changed by the words from Howard Webb.
Kefsey with a thought on the twos before we go to the fantasy hook and say goodbye.
Okay.
Kefsey says, really thought it was a tough loss to accept with just the handball PK separating them. Boshti was good in the middle, and Mo Jadama looked like he'll help us continue the center back production line. Solid for a hashtag overreaction Monday.
Yeah, Jadama's a little bit older. He's more of an established product. Very good. Very good from him. I thought Garrison Tubbs had some really good moments. He's the one you're looking at from a development pipeline. Riley, I really, really like. We saw Coleman Gannon for the first time in USL action. I loved his confidence to have that at 16. And, Coleman Gannon was throwing guys around, according to the referee, which was impressive.
Yes, Kyle Nelson, who was, 6 inches taller?
At least. Yeah, Coleman Gannon was out of control, just chucking guys around. I was very impressed with that. Yeah, I thought Atlanta United 2 was good. And you're looking at this, you want the results. You want to see good results, but you're also looking for the individual development, and I think you got a lot of that here. It's got to start leading to more results, and that's the next steps, and that's where you've got to have guys develop that killer instinct. You've got to have that final third production. You've got to have that player who can find the back of the net, take a half chance, and put it into the goal, things like that. Those are the missing elements. And you've got some players who are not healthy yet. You've had some injuries with the twos as well. So you've also lost some players from the twos that you probably expected to play with in Lawrence Wyke and George Campbell. So you're figuring it out as you always have to with the second team. And overall, good performance, just not good enough on the day, and unfortunate with a questionable handball decision, in my opinion.
Okay, so here's the fantasy update before you head to Mexico.
So you figured it out. You're going to win everything in fantasy because of some magical email.
Oh, good Lord, no.
Well, then what's your hook? You said that's a hook. What are you
No,
talking
I said
about?
that MLS. I said MLS Fantasy has the hook that I have now figured out why this year's game is different than last year's.
What
game.
is what hook? You're like a hook. You're talking about in this case to be something good that's going to help you.
No, I'm just saying that there is a hook in general that folks have to be mindful of this year that they didn't have to be mindful of last year.
Define things really weird. That hook is that's a whole different thing. I know what email you got because I got it because it's the way the game's structured this year. The player values change very frequently. And
Yes.
if you have a team that you're spending all of their money, you're going to go over your salary limit. I got the oops, you are over your salary limit.
That one. Which means you
That's
have
not
to
a hook!
stay. You have to stay at 125. That's the hook. Instead of being at 100 and having the players and their accepted increase in salary, and you would have a salary value of like 109, even though you've invested 100, you could still keep the player. Now this year, your salary values will increase week to week, but you still have to add up to 125. You can't have salary values that are over 125, keep said player, and keep going. You have to dump the players and still have a salary value of 125 million or less.
You said you'd figured it all out, and I'm like, yeah, we know this. This is how it works.
I didn't know this.
We talked about it. You weren't paying attention.
And this shocks you because?
I mean, no, but it's not a hook. It's no secret.
It's a difference. To me, a hook is a
thing.
difference. And now I get it. All right, now I understand what's going on.
Well, yes. Now you have to stay focused on your team because if your team is over the salary limit, you get no points for the week. So you got to make changes to your team, and you got to make sure that when players leave the league, you don't have them still in your lineup. All those things. It happens.
Rat fart.
Pretty much.
See, this way now I have to, and now instead of being happy with the players that I have and continuing to blow doors and winning in the Pro Rel League by 1 point, which was amazing. It's a great win for me. 76-75, holding on at the end when it was Vela and Palacios versus Vela, hoping that Palacios yellow was the difference, and it was. Now I have to restructure everything from week to week.
Yeah.
Rat farts.
You have to actually pay attention.
Well, I do pay attention, but I was happy with some guys that I had and wanted to keep them longer term than just 1 week and have to continue to add, subtract, dump, dump, add, maintain.
Yeah, you got to work. You have to work. You actually have to put in work, yes. I'm sorry that's upsetting to you.
And get a harumph out of you.
Yeah. I got Chicharito and Christian Pavone stinking it up. So I was better than last week, but not good because I actually expected the Galaxy to do something against Vancouver.
It's you and me both.
I will
Front
never
line of
count
Vela
on
and
you again.
Pavone. And I
LA
won even
Galaxy.
though I didn't start Gregish. I was very fortunate.
Yeah, you were very fortunate. But now you're going to have to pay attention or your team's going to be illegal.
Well, but then I would lose, and it would be like war games in the Pro Rel League. The best way to be relegated is not to play. Thank you, Commissioner, for that line.
Well, yeah, that's how it works. If your team's illegal, you get 0 points, and you're
0.
going to lose.
You get a flight to catch.
Not right this second, but yes,
Not
I do
right
have
this
one here
second,
in a
but you
bit.
have to prepare for it.
Yes, so that's why we're wrapping up now, and that's why we started an hour early. So if you caught the show starting at 9 o'clock and you're like, wait a minute, what's going on? These guys act like they've been talking for a while. We did.
We
You can
did.
go back and listen to the podcast edition that will be available very soon. So the rest of the week, schedule-wise, it's going to be a bit in flux. So tomorrow should be a normal show in the morning, but it might be Mexico City 9 to 11, which would be 11 to 1 Eastern time. I'll have a better sense of that tonight and put out an update for you guys then. Same for Wednesday. Thursday is completely up in the air because don't know the travel plans yet
I
getting
think that's an
back.
SDH PM.
Yeah, more than likely. But stay tuned for Thursday's show. And then Friday, the run up will be back at the Brew House getting ready for Atlanta and Kansas City. This week, you will also have some soccer over there from the Brew House tonight.
Yep.
I will not be part of that one, so yell at John and Nick when things get crazy. Uh, our Scottish friend might come yell at you guys. Hopefully, he will.
Yeah, really?
Rangers hasn't been so good lately, so y'all might have to
Oof.
ask some questions.
Oof.
It's been kind of bad. So, and you have to follow up for me since I won't be able to go nuts about the Argentine Superliga season concluding and Boca somehow winning the title
Wow.
and River falling apart at the end and Carlos Tevez's rebirth and scoring goals like for fun for Boca Juniors. You're gonna have to talk about that on the show tonight. And then tomorrow, you will have high school soccer action, Riverwood and North Springs, correct?
Check from the Riverwood International Charter School, and we'll do both of those matches. I want to say 5:30, 7:30, but keep posted on the time. But yes, North Springs, it's Spartans and Raiders from Riverwood. Doubleheader tomorrow afternoon.
Excelente. I will be talking to y'all next from Mexico, getting ready for CONCACAF Champions League, Atlanta and Club America on Wednesday night. Until then, mucha plata, y'all.
Much fun.